All right, we're going to dip out of that live speech by Donald Trump at the White House there. He'd moved on to talk about the Kennedy Center, renamed the Trump Kennedy Center. But before that, he did talk about the conflict in the Middle East. He said that the Iranian regime had been, in his words, decimated. He said that the US has targeted 7,000 sites in Iran. And then he went on to criticize European allies who have not stepped up to protect the Strait of Hormuz from Iranian attack. With me, Kethevane Gorjestani, to talk a little bit about this. And Kethevane, it did seem Donald Trump, I don't know whether angry is the word, but certainly frustrated that European NATO countries have not said, yes, okay, we'll do it. We'll go keep the Strait of Hormuz safe.
Yes, and it was interesting because there are two things that I noted in what he said about this question of whether or not allies are going to come in and help. The first thing was that he insisted multiple times that basically Iran was obliterated, that all their military capabilities were basically destroyed, that the Strait of Hormuz was, in quote, very good shape. We have it in very good shape. But yet again, asked for these allies to chip in. He also said, numerous countries have told me that they are on the way. From what we've heard, at least publicly, that is not true. The closest we have gotten is countries saying that they are either reviewing the possibility that they are talking to the Americans, like the UK Prime Minister, who said that, yes, they had discussions about it, but there was absolutely no decision made right now. The Japanese said, we're not considering it at this moment. The Australians said, we're not going in. The French said, we'll think about it if the situation makes it possible to do it. So far, no one has officially said, yes, we are coming in to help with the Strait of Hormuz. The other thing, and that goes to your point of this frustration with these allies, it goes back to something that Donald Trump has felt and repeated over and over again over the past years, even in the first term, which is this idea that especially European allies have been freeloading on the protection of the Americans. He talked at some point about the fact that there are tens of thousands of U.S. troops on European soil who are there to protect the Europeans, and yet when we call them to help us, they are not chipping in. They're not coming in. And he said, I've known this, we'll protect them, and they won't be there for us. So this goes back to something that he has said over and over again, this idea that the Europeans would not be there for the Americans if the Americans needed it. It has to be reminded that the only time, for example, that NATO Article 5 was used in the history of Article 5 was, of course, after 9/11. It was the Allies coming to help the Americans who had been attacked. So, but this is a long-running sort of Trump theme of the Europeans not doing their fair share. It is clear that Donald Trump is frustrated, but so far it hasn't really moved the needle when it comes to those allies.
And there's an irony here, isn't there, Kethevane, that, as you say, Donald Trump frustrated that NATO allies aren't going out to protect the Strait of Hormuz, when for months, if not actually for over a year now, Donald Trump has said, actually, you're all rather useless. You're relying, as you say, you're freeloading on the Americans. Just remind our viewers, the Strait of Hormuz, why is it that Trump, other world leaders are so concerned about the fact that it is effectively blockaded right now?
Well, because about 1/5 of the world's oil and gas goes through there, and that is very important for the global economy. Of course, there's some countries that depend more on Iranian or Gulf oil and gas than others, and that is true, for example, of Asian countries. They are the ones who are the first countries who are impacted by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. But it is also true to one of Donald Trump's points that the Europeans, some countries in Europe, for example, get a lot of LNG from some Gulf countries. They are not the number one consumers of that, but they are impacted. But it is also true that even though the Americans don't get a lot of the oil and gas from the Gulf, the fact that the strait is closed means the prices are going up, and those prices are going up no matter where you buy your oil from, and that is true of the Americans. And when you see the price of gas in the United States has gone up, I think it was 23 or 24% the last time I checked over the course of this war, you can see that it's not just the people who get their oil and gas from the Gulf that are being impacted. It's a lot of countries in the world, including the United States. But going back to the idea of the irony, yes, it is partly an irony to see the United States, and especially Donald Trump, who has not only said that the Europeans were a bit useless, that they were freeloaders, insulting them over the past year, he's also tariffed them. He's also called them names. He's not really played this idea of allies, of coalitions. He's also gone as far as to threaten some of his allies, like the Europeans. Remember the question of invading Greenland? That happened not so long ago. And so now you have the Americans realizing that you might be the most powerful army in the world, but sometimes you do need allies. There is a point to coalitions, to allies, and you're asking these people that you've berated for the past year to come and help you for a war that you not only didn't consult them on, you barely gave them a heads up about the start of this massive crisis in the Middle East. And finally, the last irony is also the fact that the United States is probably the strongest navy in the world, and yet even they need for example, the minesweepers for the Europeans. Donald Trump referred to it. The Americans decommissioned most of their minesweepers, and now they're realizing that potentially, if the Iranians put some mines down in the Strait of Hormuz, they might need the help of some of the Europeans. So all of that is really a point to something that Donald Trump has been critical of throughout his career as a politician, which is this idea of alliances, because yes, America is all-powerful militarily, but sometimes they do need the help of their allies.
And look, speaking about America's allies, obviously its strongest ally in this conflict is Israel. There's been some suggestion today from the Israeli military that they want this campaign now in Iran to go on for perhaps another 3 weeks. Last week, we had Donald Trump saying, and indeed he said it again today, look, we're doing really well, we're basically done, we're kind of ready to wrap this whole thing up. Do you think there's a growing divergence between Israel and the United States, two key allies, and Donald Trump sees the impact on the oil markets and thinks, do you know what, I've had enough?
Well, it is possibly going to increasingly be a question that Donald Trump is going to ask himself the longer this drags on. And to your point about the sort of the Israeli end goal and the American end goal, it doesn't seem to be on the same timeline. And part of that is because there are no clear objectives. The United States never, at the beginning of the war, put out sort of what was the ultimate goal of this war. Was it regime change? Was it killing simply the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Was it destroying nuclear capabilities? Was it destroying missile capabilities? At what point do you declare this a victory when you have not set what a victory looked like? And for the Israelis, they are willing to go at it for a long time because they also have the support of their people. When you look at the recent polls in Israel, people have rallied around the flag against this enemy that is Iran. I think it's something like 83 or 85 or even 90 among Israeli Jews, but even the population as a whole, it's past 80%. In the United States, a majority of Americans don't support this war, and they have not been told why the United States is at war. So the longer this drags on for Donald Trump, the worse it is. However, Donald Trump needs a way out that can have him say, we succeeded. there is a victory. He can't simply pull out and stop this tomorrow without having a way of shaping this and spinning this as a major victory for the United States. And it's unclear how that would be possible, but it is true that the pressure of the population is going to grow if prices continue to go up, especially at the pump for Americans. Filling up your gas tank is the number one sort of indicator of prices going up. And if they see their gas tank filled up being more and more expensive, it's going to be a problem at some point.
And how big a problem might this be, do you think, for the midterms?
Well, look, right now we're still very far away. So if this ends in a week, 2 weeks, it will likely have sort of died down by the time we get to the midterms. If this drags on for several weeks or even months, even if it's not at the scale that we're seeing today with daily strikes, multiple strikes, it could be a sort of lighter strikes and dragging on in the time. But if this drags on, again, it's always a question of timing. If this drags on, that means possibly you might get more U.S. troops dying in this war. If it drags on, you will likely see the price at the pump going up. And that, the closer you get to the midterms, that is going to become a problem, not necessarily for Donald Trump, but for Republicans who are running for re-election. And if they lose control of the House, control of the Senate, it's then going to be a problem for Donald Trump.